Welcome back to Tournament Centre here at Pro Tour Philly. Rich Hagon alongside the man himself, Mr. Conley Woods. The crowd goes wild. Conley, it's been a couple of Pro Tours since we got to stand here together doing one of these things.
Unfortunately.
But yeah, you've justified it well and truly this time. How did Constructed go for you today?
Start off 5-0. Only lost one game. Pretty good. Not as crazy as my standard fare, but it's a product of the format, I think. Sure. And yeah, started off pretty well. Did lose my first round of draft, but try to get back in there. Okay, now obviously you're wearing the Channel Fireball shirt, you're part of that team. Yep. In summary, there were two decks that kind of came out of testing in the end. Yeah. You took one path and some of the others went the zoo direction. Yeah, we were on this deck for, it was our front runner for the last week or so. Obviously we tried just about everything prior to that, but we couldn't really find something that we liked. So then last night at 7 o'clock, I show up and they're like, hey, we're all going to play Zoo. And I was like, we've been testing this deck. I feel comfortable with it. I don't want to go buy a bunch of Zoo stuff. And this format's really, you need to be doing unfair things and doing them quickly, or have the capability of stopping that. And we realized that, pretty much everyone in the room realized that Control just could not stop the unfair things. So I really wanted to be doing something very proactive. And our Zoo list was a little more controlling. It had things like Band Charms or whatnot, slower stuff. So I really just wanted to be, the one putting the pressure on. So let's see how we put the pressure on. Let's take a look at the deck. Now, it's the cheapest deck in the history of Magic in terms of mana cost. That's probably true. Let's start along the top row. You've got 4 cards we've got here. Rite of Flame, which generates mana. Correct. Then we've got Manamorphose, which generates mana. Or cards, yes. Or cards, yeah. Then we've got Desperate Ritual, which generates mana. And then we've got Seething Song, which generates mana. Surprise. So not only is this, the key though, is not just that it's mana that accelerates through all in one turn, ideally. Correct. You're spending almost no mana to get here. We're not playing, cards like Geosurge, they generate mana, but you can't really wait till turn 4. This deck really wants to start setting up to go off maybe turn 2 at the earliest, if you're really lucky. Turn 3 is kind of like a crucial turn where you decide if you're going forward or not, and then turn 4 is really, if you haven't done anything there, you pretty much want to be going off or pulling back remands and getting ready for that sort of game. So okay, let's go to the second row, and this is much more about setting things up. You've got Preordain that lets you look at the top 2, then you get to draw a card. You can send them away if you don't like them. You've got Ponder. Well, you won't be able to read what they say because you've got the very lovely Steve Argyle art. Yeah, and isn't that a beautiful, beautiful card? But again, that gets you to look at the top of your deck. You're going to get to see the pieces you need. Great with our fetch lands. Yeah, and then we have Peer Through Depths. So this time it's the top 5 cards of your library. Again, get an instant or sorcery. And then a Masquerading as a spell. Yeah, a couple of Halimar Depths. Most lists won't run them, but we really wanted to fit at least 17 lands in the list. Some lists have tried things down to 12 with like Gitaxian Probe and whatnot. We wanted to have 17 to be able to hit our land drops, and like this kind of lets us cheat on lands a little bit. Which sounds weird. 17 lands is cheating on lands in this deck, but it really is. So yeah, we have a ton of searching, and that's really what you're doing for the first few turns. And then the cheapness of Preordain and Ponder allow you to also cast them the turn you're going off to add a Storm, which is really nice. Okay, we'll come to the kill in a moment, but first of all, in order to beat them, you have to still be alive. And the way to do that, we have a little bit of a kind of let's stay alive package. You've got 4 Remand, one of the classic blue counter spells in fast formats because you get to draw a card. The fact that you're only sending it back to their hand is largely irrelevant because a lot of the time the game's so short that the game's over at that point. It's one of those things that later never comes. And then the classic Lightning Bolt, 3 damage to the creature, or even to the face if you need. Lightning Bolt's really in there to protect against like main deck Ethersworn Canist or Kasali Pride Mages, and it also is cheap enough, again, when you're going off, you can just throw it at their face to add 1 to the Storm, or with a Swath down, you do 5 damage, which we'll get to in a second. So now, here we are. Here's the kill. Now, it comes in 2 parts. Pyromancer's Swath. If an instant or sorcery source you control would deal damage to a creature or player, it deals that much plus 2 instead. Yep. Okay? Now, there is a downside, and this is actually a genuine downside. So much of Magic is where you get to avoid the downside, but at end of turn, discard your hand. So if you don't get to kill them in that first go, it's really tough from there, It is. People have tried it with things like Flame Jab in the past to just continually shoot players over and over again, but that doesn't really work in this deck. So yeah, it basically just adds 3 to the turn you're going off, that much mana, because you almost always have to cast it the turn you're going off. Okay, and then the actual kill itself, Grapeshot. 1 damage to target creature or player. Not that great. That doesn't seem nearly enough. But here is the word we care about.
It's Storm.
One of the best mechanics ever as far as combo is concerned.
Sure.
It's one of the more abusive mechanics, and that's why everything in the deck's so cheap. With Pyromancer Swath, each copy does 3 damage, so you can get to 6 copies, and all of a sudden you're dealing 18 damage. And with this format, fetch lands, dual lands, whatnot, you're taking a lot of damage. So you can also circumvent Pyromancer Swath, where you don't always have to have it, by playing a Grapeshot, going to the player for, let's say, 7 damage, and then the 8th copy, your original copy, you remand it back to your hand, and then cast it again, so you get 2 damage effectively out of your Grapeshot.
Okay, so let's just imagine that we're looking at kind of turn 4.
Sure.
Our opponent's tapped out on turn 3 to do something we don't care about. Just give us a sample of what going off looks like. Just pick out some cards and show me a typical kind of turn.
Well, if you have 4 mana in play, which is not always the case, sometimes you'll have 2 or 3. You really want to lead with your Ponders and Preordains on that turn to add to Storm and know what you need to find.
So we go and look for something, we find something, we draw a card. Step 2, we have another look.
Yeah.
We like what we see, so we draw the best card of that. And this is the Storm count. It's up to 2.
Yeah. Then you want to start casting rituals, and you haven't had to play these at all for the entire game, so you have quite a few in hand. So start with a Rite of Flame maybe.
Okay, so started with 1 mana, but now it's 2 mana.
Sure. And,
so
and then you go up to 3 mana.
So
naturally,
the 2 mana we've just put in our pool. Now we're up to 3. Red, red, red.
And then you go straight to 5.
So that 3, 2 and a red becomes 5. We're up to 5, and the Storm count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 already.
And at this point, you have a lot of red mana, but maybe you need some more blue mana for something. Maybe you have a Peer Through Depths in your hand. This is where Manamorphose comes in. It filters you and draws you a card. So the more Manamorphose in your hand, the more free cards you're going to get. And because everything's so cheap, your Storm count generally goes up at this point.
Okay, so we're up to 6. We've drawn more cards in hand.
Yep, and then at this point, you hopefully want to have both Pyromancer, Swath, and Grapeshot in hand. Occasionally, you're not going to be so lucky to have both these cards.
So that's our kill, hopefully already in hand.
Yeah, so let's say you only have a Swath, and you're under pressure, your opponent's about to kill you, you have to go for it. Now at this point, you have to do some digging. You have to send out a Peer Through Depths.
So this is the top 5, and please, please, please,
in
our
exactly.
top 5, could we have
a Grapeshot?
A Grapeshot. Now, assuming that we do,
you play this first, of course.
So we play a Pyromancer Swath, we find the Grapeshot, and then we go. Grapeshot deals 1, but because of Pyromancer Swath, it's 3. Then the Storm, for every copy of every spell that's happened, you get another copy. So back we go right to the top here. Ponder 1, Preordain 2, Ritual, Ritual, Ritual 5, 6, 7. The spell itself.
8, and then the spell itself.
And the spell itself. So all in all,
that's 27 damage.
That's 27 damage. And you know what players start with in this game? Even in Modern, it turns out
16,
to be 20, or even a bit less.
Yeah, you just start taking damage from your lands right away, and you end up pretty low.
Yeah. Talking of lands, one final thing. Just take a look at this mana base. Not because any other reason than it's just incredibly aesthetically pleasing. Just with one of the most beautiful mana bases.
Mana's pretty resilient. You don't really need red mana until the turn you're going off, so you can you masquerade as some other type of deck, a Hive Mind or something like that, for the first few turns, and then all of a sudden red mana comes out of nowhere and you're good to go. Especially with Manamorphose, the breeding pool is really nice. It's in there for Sideboard Ancient Grudges, which is no secret, but breeding pool, because it produces green, you can actually turn a Manamorphose into red mana, which your opponent wouldn't be expecting. I did that. I actually killed an opponent today where I had no rituals and no red mana, and played 4 Manamorphose off of a breeding pool, and then just Swath Grapeshot for 18. It was pretty cool.
And there you go. Storm, one of the most powerful mechanics ever, and it's doing the business in Modern. For Conley Woods from Channel Fable. For Conley Woods, I'm Rich Hagon, saying bye.